Hello everybody, this is the 40k Renegade, and today we're going to talk about Chosen versus Berserkers. Now, you can make these units almost identical if you want, for almost identical points. For instance, right, if you give Chosen the Mark of Chaos, say Mark of Corn, then basically their 2 attacks, plus 1 for the 2 weapons, that's 3 attacks, becomes 4 attacks if someone charges you, and 5 attacks if you charge them. Assuming it's not a disordered charge. And then on the Chaos Berserkers, they get +1 for the 2 attacks, or for the 2 weapons, right? That means it's 2 attacks and 3 attacks there. Mark of Corn gives them 3 attacks and 4 attacks. If they charge somebody else, it's 4 attacks, and 5 attacks, for the Berserker and the Berserker Champion respectively. So they're very, very similar. There is a few advantages, for one or the other, but they're very, very similar. But where it changes, other than the Fearless and Furious Charge, which Berserkers get, right, is the weapons that the Chosen can take. Chosen can basically upgrade most of their things. They're like a blank sheet. You can give them anything you like, almost anyway. For instance, you can replace a close combat weapon with a power weapon or a lightning claw or a power fist. But if you're going to give a weapon of assault troops something, you want to give them something that strikes first, not last. So you wouldn't want to be giving them a power fist. You've got other things that could strike last. Assault troops have taken out massive hordes of stuff, whole units. So you'd be looking at a power sword or a lightning claw or something like that. Also, you can give them weapons you can give every single one of them a melter gun if you liked. Imagine it, 5 Chosen armed with melter guns walking across the battlefield. Your opponent's not as familiar with your army as you are. He sees the melter guns and thinks, right, my assault troop will take them out. He charges in, then finds out too late that you've got 4 attacks with each of them. Total of 20 attacks against his men. And his assault marines, right, start out with 1 attack, +1 for the 2 weapons, +1 for charging. And he's only got 5 men too. He's going up with 15 attacks, and your guys armed with melter guns are going to have 20. You're going to chew him to bits, and he charged you. If you charged him, he doesn't stand a chance at all. So they basically are a surprise for anybody that's not familiar with the Chaos armies. They can not only be given weapons that can take out tanks and land raiders and even knights, they can be really good in close assault. Whereas the Berserkers, they're not so, they're very limited. It's basically pure close combat. There's very few upgrades there that you could take that are going to give them any other abilities. So the Chosen are a nasty surprise. Of course, you'd have to pay for them. You'd have to pay like equivalent of 40 points extra. So if you're playing an Iron Warriors and you're following the Traitor Legion setup, you'd end up paying 90 points for 5. You might you can't take a Mark of Chaos because it's Iron Warriors, but if it was Black Legion you could, so in which case that would be an extra 10 points, so that would be 100 points. And then you take, say, 4 melter guns, that there is 140. However, you could also take 4 flamers, so anybody charges you, that would be 4 D3 automatic hits against anybody charging you using that wall of flame rule, I think it is. So you could make them into a real nasty piece of work for people, especially if you've got playing orcs and they're charging you, and you get an automatic, 4 D3 hits. That's between 4 and 12 automatic hits at strength 4. You've got to admit that is cool. You could even give one of them something heavier, like heavy bolter, auto cannon, laser cannon, so you can change them into a pretty nasty squad. Lots of options there for Chosen, you see. This is why Chosen should be considered if you want to really throw a spanner in the works and really kind of mess people up, because they don't necessarily look like like they'd be much of a threat against certain units, but the stats are hidden. You don't see the stats when you're looking at the model unless you equip them that way. Now, how to make Chosen up? I recommend you buy. What I did is I brought Havoc's, a squad of Space Marines, and a squad of Raptors all at the same time, and I made the Raptors up. But I used the Talon heads on the 5 Space Marines I'd spare after making the Havocs up. I made 2 squads of Havocs out of the box set, you see, because I had some other weapons kits spare. So I used the Talon heads on the normal Space Marines to make them look a bit different. So they ended up looking a little bit more jazzy. Some people recommend using the Raptor bodies as as Havocs because they look more fancy. But I find the way they look like they're dancing around, if you haven't got jetpacks, it doesn't really make sense on the model. But there are parts on the Raptor kits that are worth using. So if you buy a Raptor kit with 5 jetpack Marines or Chaos Marines in them, save the bits back. It's a really good source of lightning claws as well, by the way, the Raptor kit. So it's really worth keeping it for that reason as well. Plus you get other bits and bobs in that pack. On the subject of Chaos Berserkers, they're well worth taking. In fact, there's a Maelstrom of Gore, I think it is. It's a formation for them, 4 squads plus a Chaos Lord or Khan the Betrayer. If you're running the Chaos Legion book or rules, you obviously wouldn't be able to take Khan the Betrayer unless you were in. I think it's World Eaters, is it? But you could take a Chaos Lord. So in that case, if I found it here first, in that case you could run 4 squads of 5. Now the trouble with these formations is they're rather expensive to field. I mean, if you were to field a lot of these, you'd be basically committing your whole game to one strategy in a lot of cases, unless you're playing a really big game. But 4 squads of Khorne Berserkers here with a Chaos Lord or kind of Betrayer, and you get to attack, right, using the Red Rain rule, which gives you an attack in the movement phase, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, you get 1 attack in the movement phase per battle, so you can surprise someone once. They can't attack back. But a squad of Berserkers do really, really good in close assault, but they're going to do good at close assault, and so does your opponent. They look the part, they've got the weapon, there's no confusing them for anything other than close assault, so he's going to be chewing them up. You'll need to protect them, deliver them in vehicles, or use cover to get them close or something like that, because they're going to get shot up otherwise, and you wouldn't want to lose them to shooting. You'd rather lose them in close assault where they can tie things up. Now a counter strategy for that, if you're playing any army with a cheap unit or like cultists or whatever, is to tie them up with your cheapest unit so they're stuck in combat with them. Orc Gretchen, absolutely brilliant for that. I've taken Terminators down, I've taken Force Commandos down, everything down with Gretchen. I swear by them. Just stick loads and loads of them up front, right? Let them take the heat and everything else, and you'd be surprised how well they do. I mean, a squad of Gretchen only has to take down a few things to actually pay for itself, and considering you put them up there to take the heat, any shots at them pays for themselves. They pay for themselves every time someone shoots at them, so they're really good. But if you're facing Berserkers, cheap units straight in there. Never let them charge you, because they get a lot more attacks. You get an extra 5 attacks on a squad of 5. If you're facing Chosen, good luck, because they can. If you equip them right, they can have the weapons needed to take care of you. You give them free. You get up to between 4. For instance, if it was flamers, you get between 4 and 12 shots at anything that charges you. So if you give them 4 flamers, that's only 5 points per flamer, so the whole thing would only cost 110 points for 5 chosen. Says you'd get up to 4d3 hits, automatic hits. So you could get between 4 and 12 automatic hits against anything charging the chosen. So charging them isn't a good idea if they're equipped that way. If they're armed with melter guns or stuff like that, they become very, very dangerous. They're probably better off shooting chosen than charging them, just in case they're equipped in certain ways, because they've got so many choices and so many variations that they could have. They're just very, very flexible troops. On the whole, though, I wouldn't take too many squads of chosen. It might be cheap and everything, but it all adds up. You need to save your pennies back with a Chaos Force, and to be honest, if you're looking at Chaos Space Marines, they're 75 points for 5, right? That extra, say, 15 points might not seem an awful lot, but it does add up. You need to be taking like Chaos Cultists at 50 points to be taking care of objectives and sitting on objectives and whatnot. In fact, in a lot of Chaos games, I found myself facing Ultramarines and other Chaos Forces and Orcs and stuff, and half the time my Chaos Cultists were doing all the work because my Chaos Marines were behind them, unable to fire because there was too much going on, too much scenery. In which case, if we go to the Chaos Traitor Legion book again, and you turn to, if I can find it, I've gone past it. If we look at the cultist formation, I've got to find it. By the way, on the cultist formation, you've got you need an apostle. Trouble is, Games Workshop site is now, well, it's now a website only product, and the trouble with anything that goes website only product with Games Workshop is it tends to go out of stock a lot. It used to be okay when they had them in the shops because they always had something in, but now it's website only. They don't seem to keep things in stock. Here it is, Lost and the Damned. 4 to 9 units of Chaos Cultists, but you can, you know, when you lose a whole squad, you can bring them back on a 4+. So if you are taking cultists, it's worth taking them in that formation. Trouble is, the apostle, that's about 110 points, I think it is, just for the squad, just to give you that special rule. So that might be a bit rich. You know, it depends on whether you're going to use it or not. But if you're going to take units like Chosen and Berserkers, taking lots and lots of cheap units allows you to take the more expensive ones without actually looking like you're fielding half an army. So you need to consider that fact when you're taking more expensive troops, otherwise your opponent's going to vastly outnumber you. Right, that's it then for the Berserkers and Chosen. Remember, Chosen are a nasty surprise, right? You can give them weapons. They won't look like close assault troops on the table if you give them weapons like that. Or you can equip them as close assault troops and people won't know they're equipped with melter guns, you know, because they've got both sets of weapons. See, so they're good for that. Berserkers always look like close assault beasts. They are close assault beasts and tend to always do well if you can get them into close assault. Right, I'll leave it there. Remember, place any comments below, corrections, ideas, you know, whatnot. I'm going to be trying including as many of the new rules in these videos as well. At some point I'll be going through the Traitors Hate book, so you can see the difference between Traitors Hate and Traitors Legion. But to be honest, it's simple. The simple difference is if you've got one of the recognised war bands or chapters or whatever, it's Traitors Legion. If you haven't, then you want to be using Traitors Hate. And remember, in Traitors Hate you can get the Lost and the Damned as a core choice for a warband, which is vastly cheaper than taking the warband that they list in everything else. Whereas with Traitors Legions, the Lost and the Damned is no longer a core choice for most people or most groups, so you don't get that choice anymore. Right, I'll leave it there then. I'll speak to you in the next one.